What's up, everyone? This is Forsaken Memories 45, shorthand for Forsaken M, and I actually planned on making this video a little bit earlier, having it upload a little bit earlier, but here we are. In the wake of Sephiroth's reveal at the Game Awards and the fact that his presentation's tomorrow, I'm really excited about that. I know a lot of people are hyped up about it. I know that there's speculation to be done, but I really think that that speculation shouldn't be done quite yet. I know some people are jumping the gun, but we really need to wait and see what Mii costumes show up. And speaking of which Mii costumes show up, I know, as a fellow Geno fan, as you can see, Cara Cola, Frog Hopping Good, you got Mallow right there. I know for a fact that there are a lot of fellow Geno bros out there that are super down in the dumps right now. They've essentially given up. They expect to see Geno's costume tomorrow, and that's all she wrote. Well, I'm here to say that it ain't over, Geno bros. And that's just a fact. So, what I wanted to do for my fellow Geno bros, because they've been very, very, very upset, up and down, roller coaster with this, is just to go over a couple of topics real quick, or as quick as my rambling self can, on why it's not really over yet. And I guess we can just start right out of the gate. And that would be, the first point I want to make is Sakurai-san, or Daddy Sakurai, as we tend to call him, himself. And what I mean by that is that he has clearly stated years back, 2016, that Geno still gets a lot of requests, and that he wanted to give us something. This means that not only does Sakurai acknowledge that we're out here wanting Geno in big enough droves to matter and to talk about and to make a costume for when he just couldn't make a character, but he also wanted to give that to us as some sort of, so that we got something. And what that means usually is, hey, you know, you're a big enough fan base, we didn't have enough time to make a character, this is the best that we could do, but we wanted to make sure you got something. That is basically what that implies. And in that same interview, he also mentions how he's wanted to put in Geno ever since Brawl, and it just hasn't happened. So, Sakurai himself still has the desire to put Geno in Smash, as far as we know. And honestly, considering how aware of us he is, this would mean that within a certain extent his dev team is, and Nintendo has already shown awareness of fans of Super Mario RPG in the past, so they know that there's a lot of popularity there too, and no doubt that has been brought up to Square via meetings with Nintendo, via meetings with Sakurai, that this has been brought up to them so they would know. In other words, everyone knows how popular Geno is. This isn't some sort of mystery. It's not going to be a Shadow Assist Trophy or an Isaac Assist Trophy situation where it really wasn't quite well known or not taken seriously, or however you want to view that. We don't have that kind of situation. And that's very important, that the lead developer of the game understands that there's a fan base out there that wants that. And because of that, it wouldn't really make a lot of sense for Sakurai when terms for Geno would have either been negotiated to last this long or had to be renegotiated at some point during the development of Ultimate, to wait this long to reveal the Mii costume when he knows how big of a deal Geno is in general when it comes to Smash. So that is one big reason to still believe that Geno is very likely to be playable and will not show up tomorrow as a Mii costume. And the next topic I wanted to focus on to give you guys a little bit of boost in confidence is lots of costume potential when it comes to Square. So, yes, Geno falls under Square in terms of Mii costume possibility. Everyone keeps talking about how they could do a deluxe or premium version that comes with music. I disagree. I feel like they would just easily pluck exactly how he was, maybe because older models like Heihachi or Gil have been updated a little bit and look a little bit nicer. Maybe Geno would be updated a little bit, but I highly doubt it would end up being anything like Sans or Cuphead or Bomberman, where it looks exactly like the character. Mainly because it's just free money for Square, and then if they wanted to change it or update it, there would have to be new negotiations more than likely. Once again, could have fallen under renegotiations done for base Ultimate, but you think that the costume would have shown up already. Contracts only last so long, and Sakurai's knowledge of the community that supports Geno really is weird to wait all this time just to reveal a Mii costume. But I digress. That was the first point. So for this point, we need to think. In the separate release trailer, it showed cross Final Fantasy VII. But at the Game Awards, it was cross Final Fantasy. I think there's a possibility that we can get costumes from all out Final Fantasy's history. Mainly because, as big as Final Fantasy VII is, I don't think it's even debatable that it's the biggest. It is, like, all the Final Fantasies. There are others that are really popular as well. 10, 6. I know that 15 was really well received. So, we could get the easiest one to go with is there's all the characters from Final Fantasy VII are loved, right? So Barret costume, Tifa costume, maybe a Cid costume, Aerith costume, maybe even a Vincent costume. They could go crazy and make a Zack costume, even make black-haired Cloud costume. No offense, Zack. Sorry, but honestly, there are a lot of choices within Final Fantasy VII itself. But then you branch out and you could have a Noctis costume, a Lightning costume, you could have a Terra costume, maybe even a Kefka costume. And that's just a couple of them. I'd lose my mind over a Titus/Titus costume. I really would. Maybe a Yuna costume. And that's just, like I said, that's literally scratching the surface, because of how many Final Fantasy games have come out and how many spin-offs we have. And then this also, because of spin-offs, and, there are attributes that are consistent throughout most of the games, like Moogles. We could get a Moogle hat. Maybe, I highly doubt we get a Moogle costume. I mean, it's possible. But a Moogle hat, the Chocobo hat can return. Maybe we'll get like a weird Chocobo costume. Once again, I highly doubt that, but it is possible. And, there are multiple things that can be done within just Final Fantasy. Way more than enough to take up all the Mii costume slots. And that's if you assume there's going to be 6. The last time we had anything to do with Square and Mii costumes in Ultimate, there was only 4, and they were all brand new. So there may be no returning costumes. I think there's probably going to be at least 1, but there could be none. Another repeat of what happened last time. And it could be anywhere between 4 costumes and 6 costumes. So we need to keep that in mind. Also to keep in mind is that there are other franchises that Square has that they can make money off of without necessarily making a character. This is going to probably make some people upset who watch this, but 2B is a real possibility as a Mii costume, especially when the developer/creator has shown to cross over with just about anything and be down for the money. It doesn't necessarily mean that she needs to come in as playable. She can very easily be a Mii costume. She's actually the perfect setup. Most of her face is obscured. And that can be part of the a good chunk of her face is obscured. That can be part of the costume. She's a typical humanoid, so that's easy to translate into a Mii costume. You can get Neku from The World Ends With You. They're starting to get a surge in popularity, with an anime coming, with a true and proper sequel being announced. I believe it's Neo. It's probably a lot longer name than that, like most crazy Japanese RPGs are. But they could get a costume representing a character from the new game, though likely they would pick Neku. And Neku, once again, humanoid, He's got crazy orange hair going on, but that can very easily be turned into a costume because he's a humanoid, which is there's a very easily bringing it over to fit another humanoid like the Mii's. Another one that is possible is Chrono. From Chrono Trigger, obviously. For those who don't know, it was a very popular game when it came out. It's been released on iOS at least once, but they're not really doing anything with it. It fell off after Chrono Trigger really wasn't as successful. And considering it's not nearly as requested as other characters are, I don't really think that it would be anything more than a costume. Also perfectly fits being able to be a costume, just make your own like crazy anime looking swordsman. They did it with Lloyd before. They can easily do it with Chrono. And I mean, as far as I know, he only wields one sword, and Lloyd wielded two, and they still went ahead and made him a costume, even though it wasn't entirely accurate. Technically, I guess Lara Croft could be a costume. I don't know. I don't really see that. She is a humanoid, so I guess it is possible that you could just have like a Mii that look like very barely at all looks like her because of traditional body type for her, and you just have like blue shirt, pants, and brown hair. I don't know. I guess you could do that. So there, like I said, there are lots of options for costumes without even touching Geno at all or anything Super Mario RPG. Now, obviously, can still happen. Don't want to act like it's impossible, even though I believe it's not going to happen because there's so many more options to pick from. But it is still in the realm of possibility, and I want to be honest with you guys about that. I'm just here mentioning why there's reasons to look forward to tomorrow without as much stress and anxiety, as Geno fans. Moving on to the next topic. And that's that fan rules seemingly are made to be broken. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but all of Ultimate has basically been breaking all these fan rules that everyone's made. There was always, especially specifically for characters, Ridley's too big, King K. Rool's too irrelevant, Banjo and Kazooie is, Konami doesn't care about Castlevania anymore, and definitely not older Castlevania or like traditional Castlevania. Joker was PlayStation only, he couldn't happen. Banjo and Kazooie, dead franchise owned by a competitor, couldn't happen. I remember people were arguing about Hero before we knew exactly what Hero entailed, and they're like, it doesn't mean anything in the West. There's no way, even though it's the biggest thing in Japan ever for forever. And it's just Steve was thought to be impossible because Banjo got in. And then Sephiroth was thought to be impossible because a lot of people thought Geno was more than likely to be the next Square character. So obviously, fan rules are just broken all over the place. We really don't know what's going to happen. We can only guess. Honestly, at this point, we should stop just placing rules. Oh yeah, and Min Min being one of the biggest ones. Oh, spirits can't become playable if they're in the base game. That's it. That's all they're going to get is that content. Yeah, well, guess what? So, I just want you guys to keep in mind, anyone who tells you, oh, we can't get two characters from the same company in the same pass, that's a fan rule. Just flat out, that's a fan rule. Has past president suggested this? Yeah. Can it just be as easily broken when the next character is revealed and sometime during the next 3 character reveals as anything else? Yeah, it honestly can. So, just keep that in mind, that anyone who says Geno is out because we already got a Square character in the past, that's a fan rule. They don't know what's going on. They're just making an assumption because of things that have happened in past precedent, which I believe is something you should strongly, look at, past precedent. But when you're also all about breaking as much of past present as possible, you need to look at that as well. Another fan rule that is a little bit weird, but basically Sephiroth's existence himself does not count out Geno. It really doesn't, because if you think about it, Sephiroth is very iconic. Cloud was already in the game. You can't really have Cloud without Sephiroth in just about every media that they're in. So honestly, we should have been considering him a little bit more. The original anime swordsman. And the one of the most iconic villains in gaming, flat out. We should have been ready for him. But with, as you know, most of the reveals this past, we weren't. But Sephiroth in general does not cancel out Geno's chances. It's whether or not Geno shows up in the Mii costume line tomorrow that really hurts him. In fact, if he doesn't show up, it's incredibly, ridiculously good for him. So I basically, to summarize those two, because I believe those are the only two that really matter for Geno, is that it is entirely possible that we could get another Square character within the pass. And anyone who says that is impossible, they don't really know, and they're just assuming, ergo, that's a fan rule. Another one is that Sephiroth's inclusion, not because he's a Square character, but because the thought process is he kind of just his existence means that Geno didn't win out and can't win out. That's not true either, because remember, as I said before, Steve couldn't get in because Banjo was already in. People were spouting that everywhere. Well, guess what happened? So don't let fan rules weigh you down. That's exactly what they are. It is people trying to make sense of what has been going on in past precedent, and a lot of them are horrible. Like the Spirits Deconfirm. That never ever mattered because the game is still being updated, so literally anything can happen with new negotiations and changes can be made. But everyone swore up and down, and look where we are. The last thing that I wanted to talk about is something that'll probably get people going even more crazy than anything else I've said, and that is that Volume 3, aka Fighters Pass 3, is way more likely and way more probable than anyone really thinks right now. What I'm meaning by this is, one of the big reasons people think Geno's chances are done is because, obviously, the fan rule that I mentioned, no two characters from the same company in the same pass, but also that this is the end of the DLC, which means Geno is screwed. And I have to say, that doesn't make any sense at all, honestly. If you look at what's been going on with other fighting games, obviously, as Smash isn't really considered one, but they are following in the footsteps of games like Tekken 7, games like Street Fighter 5. If you look at these games, how long ago did they come out? 4, 5, going on 6 years ago. It was like mid 2010s. That's crazy. But they're still actively getting support. Of course, it's starting to lessen, and they're probably getting ready to move on to make new titles for the new consoles. But that doesn't apply to the Switch. The Switch, it hasn't even really hit the middle of its life cycle yet. It's getting there, but it hasn't even really hit the middle of its life cycle yet. So, look at all these other games that were in around the middle of the PS4's life cycle. Tekken 7, Street Fighter 5. If you look at these, and you saw that they released, some of them had better base releases than others, but they all kept coming with season pass after season pass, after wave after wave after wave of DLC, adding more costume pieces, adding more characters, more stages, more music, making updates to the base mechanics of the game. This is important because they didn't stop. They could have done one pass and one wave, maybe another wave, and just been done with it. Just called it and been done. But they didn't. They kept going on way longer than we've really seen ever. And this is important because this is proof that a company can release a single game in a franchise, potentially, especially a fighting game, and make the release the best that they can with the time that they have, like funds and assets that they have, and then update that game with original content and fan demanded content for years, and be super successful with it. It's been proven. I think Tekken 7 is in its 6th DLC. Street Fighter 5 is on like its 5th wave. Other examples are that Samurai Showdown. Samurai Showdown has had at least 2 waves. I'm not sure if they're on their 3rd or not. Soul Calibur 6 has just ended their 2nd wave of DLC. Dragon Ball FighterZ is in the end game of their 3rd wave of DLC. So it has been proven possible. And the reason I stress this is because Nintendo saw how profitable DLC can be with Smash. You put in crazy requests that people thought would never get in, ones that have been demanded for years and years, and it makes money. And that means that you can keep a game alive without having to take the time and development and resources to make another base game every time. But you can add on to it way less resources, way less assets, way less time, and still make really good money. And that's, why would you not do that for as long as you can? And considering the Switch, like I said, not even really in the middle of its life cycle here, we have a long time that could span on having more waves of DLC. And we're nowhere near hitting the list of requests, like the bottom of it. We're nowhere near of characters that have been asked for a really long time. Or characters that are more publicly loved that aren't necessarily heavily requested. Or, usually I would attribute that to a more casual audience that isn't really big into Smash as it is. But, if you look at the list of characters, there's so many more out there you can pick. There's so much more money that can be made. And with how much easier it is on everyone, and Sakurai seems to be enjoying himself, and considering that this is the golden era of Smash, it's been stated multiple times by multiple people, Smash isn't gonna, this is as good as it's gonna get, and we should keep that train rolling to make it as big and as best as it can be with Ultimate. We just really should. Because after that, there's no way, unless they somehow keep all the negotiations and port it over to the next system, there's no way that we're going to keep this the way that it is. We're going to lose so much of it. So many characters, stages, music, content. It's almost unsustainable outside of this release, is essentially. So, think that we should keep that in mind. And obviously Sakurai wants to meet more fan demand. He wants to keep making the game as big and as great as he can be. We're not at 100 characters yet. We won't be with the next 3. Why don't we just keep on going? Make it 100. We'll go past 100. Put in as many as we can. Why not? There's no reason not to. So in conclusion, just to brief summarize all the points that I've made to try to, cheer up Geno fans. It's not over yet until if we see his Mii costume. Even then, I think we should still really try and push for him. But at that point, I'll understand if people give up tomorrow if his Mii costume gets shown up. I will understand that. But it's not over. Sakurai has a lot more say in the DLC than people like to believe. He really does. And he knows about Geno fans. He wants Geno. And as long as that stays, I don't see why it wouldn't happen. Number 2 for the topics was that there's a lot of costume potential outside of Geno. Final Fantasy VII is big. Final Fantasy outside of 7 is big. And Square has other IPs that they can put costume that they can take from to make costumes without ever touching Super Mario RPG. The third topic being that fan rules have just been absolutely broken left and right through Ultimate's development, meaning that Geno could very possibly show up in this pass later on if that is what they decided to do. And no amount of rules set up by fans who possibly don't even want Geno, so they have a bias, is going to stop Sakurai from doing what Sakurai is going to do. And then that leads into the fourth topic, which is that it is entirely possible that a third wave of DLC, or even more past that, can happen, and likely will, which opens up more opportunity. Even if you really believe in that fan rule or the past precedent, it opens up a lot more opportunities for not just Geno, but for a lot of other characters. Like I said, the list is very long. But that's all that I really had to say. I just wanted to encourage Geno fans, give them something to watch to kind of like encourage them. Like I said, I wanted to release this a couple of days ago, record it, upload it, but it just didn't happen. So I'm sorry that you don't have all that much time to watch this and build up that positivity, because that's what it's all about. No negativity. Don't give up. It is not over, Geno Bros. It is not over until the fat Yoshi from Super Mario RPG sings, and he is not singing. I'm listening. I don't hear it. This is not the time to give up. This is the time to stay strong. And it's also the time to enjoy Sephiroth for how amazingly iconic and cool he is, even if he's not the character we wanted. That being said, this has been Forsaken Memories 45, shorthand Forsaken M. I really enjoyed talking about this. I'm really excited to see everything about Sephiroth tomorrow and all the updates. Hopefully just a crap ton of music gets added to make up for what happened in Smash 4. But we'll see. Very soon, actually. We'll see. You know what we'll also see? Or rather, what I'll see? I'll see you guys on the flip side. The flip side? Flip side? Flip side? One of those ways. Deuces. Don't give up on Geno! Don't give up on Geno!